Hey everyone, welcome to another Logz.io webinar. It's a series of webinars that we hold monthly to all of you guys to learn more about our solution and also getting more from your logs. My name is Thiago. I'm a customer success engineer here at Logz.io, and I'll be your host today. The focus for today's webinar is around successful onboarding. So today's webinar will be very focused on the beginning stages of your experience with Logz.io. We've had a previous webinar on this topic, and you can easily find all the webinars within our Logz.io Academy, which I will go into more details about it. And it was called Logz.io 101. Today's webinar will be very complementary to this webinar in particularly, and we will go into some tips and tricks around how to get more from the solution. Before I start the webinar, I would like to bring you up to speed on the options you have to reach out to Logz.io. Of course, today, submit any questions through the chat, and one of our representatives will be fielding your questions, may answering some directly on the chat itself. However, if you do run into any issues with our solution or just have questions in general, feel free to start a conversation with our support team. A couple of easy ways to do so is through chat. If you log into your account, one of the things you will notice is that there is a chat bubble on the right-hand side. Also, feel free to submit an email to help@logz.io. And lastly, we have a self-support website at docs.logz.io in case you want to just search for a quick answer for anything you may have questions about. All right, as I mentioned, I was going to speak about the Logz.io Academy. So the Logz.io Academy is a self-paced online learning platform. We've designed that to actually assist our clients during the onboarding. You will be able to find things like tutorials, webinars, recordings, as I showed you, how-to guides, and also detailed information on how to learn more about Logz.io. You can easily visit academy.logz.io. Let's just take a quick look at it. If we go back to the main site, you will see a couple of options here, onboarding, getting started. And by the way, today's webinar, I will refer to some of the articles in the Academy as well. So feel free to follow along. However, if you do want to see our previous webinar lists, they are listed right here. And once again, Logz.io 101, this is a very complimentary webinar that we're going to be hosting today. All right, so I will be your presenter. Today is a little different than our previous webcasts, webinars we've been hosting. Usually we have invited some guests to talk about their experience, but today we are focusing on spending the majority of time to give you new information so you can get more from the solution. Once again, I'm a customer success engineer, and my role here is to assist our clients during the beginning stages, especially of using Logz.io and getting the most from the solution. So with that in mind, a lot of the things I will share with you is based on my personal experience, and also there are things that I will cover during onboarding that I will try to bring you up to speed to why I also ask questions the way I do, to assist you think through your setup and how you can get more from the solution. So as a starting point, before I even start everything, and now we're gonna dive into the tool, I would like to start with a poll. And the reason we wanna do that is because today, not only we are focusing on teaching you more about Logz.io, we also wanna get you more involved in getting our support so you can do so. The webinar is one way for you to learn more from the tool. However, let's launch the first poll, and I'll go more into it. So the quick poll is, have you used Logz.io support in the past? And if so, how would you rate your experience? The reason this is such an important question for us is because we always want to give you awesome support. That is our goal. If we are not delivering that, we would love to hear from you guys. why that may not be the case and how we actually can do better. So this actually it is live, so your vote will count, and I will share with everybody once the information has been submitted, so you guys can see. So please feel free to vote, and I will share with you guys the results in a couple more seconds. I will give you guys 10 more seconds to vote, and we'll take it from there. All right, you guys had your opportunity to vote now. I will be closing the poll, and I will be sharing the results. So the majority of you guys have had an awesome experience with us, and that's great to hear. That's actually very exciting, especially because we get close to 50%. We met your expectations. I think meeting expectations are good, but that's definitely not our goal. Hopefully that's we don't meet your expectations today on this webinar, and we definitely wow you guys and hopefully give you a great experience. And nothing special, for room for improvement. Whoever gave us this rating, if you would be kind enough to send us an email to help@Logz.io, I would love to hear from you guys what kind of room for improvement we could have had on your previous experience, because once again, we do want to make sure you all get the most from Logz.io. All right, so let's dive into the first topic of conversation. Before going to it, let me share with you guys the agenda and what's our plan for today. So we're going to be covering a couple of topics. The first one will be around log shipping and parsing as well, and how they go together. And then a little basics around searches and visualizations. We have had other webinars that have focused on advanced searches and advanced visualizations as well. So feel free to visit the Academy and get some more information about those. Today will be really around the basics, and then we will leave some time towards the end for some Q&A. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Logz.io and a couple of the conversations I have with our partners, and some of the examples I may go through, some questions I will ask while I'm asking those questions. So whenever starting our onboarding, one of the things I try to understand is who is going to be using the tool, who are going to be the users, how are they dividing to departments, and so on and so forth. The reason that's important is because one of the topics I may bring up is the use of a feature called Manage Accounts. Logz.io actually offers an option for you to create what's called sub-accounts. If you're not currently using sub-accounts, once again, it's very easy to get there. Click on the little gear on the right-hand side, go into settings, and go into manage accounts. The reason I will ask some of those questions is because depending on how the situation is being described to me, how they're going to be using the tools, I may talk and go into this conversation about how sub-accounts can help you. So what is the use of sub-accounts? For example, let's say you have some users that don't necessarily need access to all of the data you're going to be shipping to us. They may need just a subset or a specific type of logs they need access. You may want to create a sub-account, so not all the data goes into the main account only, and some of the data will go into the sub-account. So that way you actually can have a division of users and what they can currently see. So as an example right here of a sub-account that I've created myself, you will have also under advanced options, the option to enable main account users to access the account, and also searchable from the main account. Those two options are actually very important as well when creating a sub-account. What I will explain to some of our users is that when creating a sub-account, the main account can still have access to all of the logs, and you will be able to build visualizations to search all of the logs within the environment. All you have to do is actually check this option. And also, if the main account users who are administrators do need access to every other sub-account, all you have to do is check this box, so you don't have to deploy the new users within the environment. Another thing that some of our customers will do, just keep this in mind, is that your main account, actually only the users who are administrator under this main account only, they will have access to the billing information. and they are the only ones who can actually create other sub-accounts. The reason that's important is because some of our users actually will create a sub-account and allocate all of the gigabytes that they have into that sub-account only and leave the main account blank. And the reason they do that is because the users under that account will have full access to Logz.io. They will be able to go into any sub-account, depending how it's set up. Plus, they are the only ones who can see the billing, upgrade plans, and make changes to the account. So if you do have, let's say, some security concerns on the way your account is actually currently set up, or you have some specific security protocol that you actually want to follow that only some people have access to the billing information and so on and so forth, this actually may be a good use case for you. All right, so let's go back into some other details of how you can leverage the solution. Next, we're going to talk about logging. So shipping logs, and also a very common question that we get is about choosing the ideal shipper, like what log shipper should you use? And this in particularly, this topic, we've covered that during, as I said, Logz.io 101. I won't go into details too much on the log shippers themselves, but I'm going to go into details of some roadblocks that I usually will run into and I try to correct during the onboarding session with the client. And also from there, let's talk a little bit more about data parsing, why it's important. And here, as you can see, what is data parsing? It's the process of analyzing text. And I will go into more details to why that's actually relevant for us. And also, why parse my data? We'll talk about like the easy display and filtering data, especially when we talk about searches, creating visualizations, and configuring alerts as well. All right, very good. So let's go into defining type and excluding logs. So let me start with a very basic concept of log shipping to Logz.io. Let's actually look at a curl command here. And one of the things that I want to share with you is what is actually necessary to ship logs to Logz.io. So in a very basic level, the main things that you need is, of course, the file itself that you want to ship it to us. You will need your token, which is right here. And you also have a token that's created for every single main account and sub account. So one of the common questions that I may get, let me complement on my previous topic, is that if you don't have a proper setup today, exactly the way you want for main accounts and sub accounts, the only thing you need to change is the token on your shipper. And basically that will allow you to start shipping logs to this new sub account that was just recently created. So it's a very easy process to create sub accounts and start shipping logs. And that right there, as you can see, is always a mandatory field when shipping logs to us. And lastly, behind the copy right here, you actually have type. So there's three things: the address for the file itself, the token, which is created is uniquely for every account and sub account, and also the type. So why type is so important for Logz.io? Actually, let's look into a shipper, FileBeat. I'm actually going to talk about FileBeat a lot today. One, because of my personal familiarity with it, and also is a very common shipper that a lot of our partners are currently using. So if we actually go into the configuration file, one of the things that we'll see is that type is actually a mandatory field there as well. As you can see, once again, the token shows up, and also the path for this log. So what is type? Type is basically what defines what kinds of logs you're shipping to us, okay? So one of the things that when working with our partners, and I'm actually first onboarding them, a very common mistake that I see is that they would start shipping logs to us, and every single log, regardless of where they're coming from, they have the same type as the same name. So when trying to filter that data, it becomes sometimes very difficult. So the first homework I will do with them, especially if I do realize this as we are going through their account, is that I will ask them to separate log types by actual type. So let's say you're shipping us Apache logs some Nginx logs, and some AWS logs. The type itself should reflect the format of the log, which the type, as we'll go through it here through this presentation today, how that actually can help you easily filtering information and also creating alerts and so on and so forth. So one of the things I would ask you is when you configured your log shipper, did you actually take in consideration the type? And the reason that is also important is because Logz.io does offer parsing as a service, and the way we differentiate your logs for proper parsing is by the log type. So please make sure that you go through your shippers, make sure that type is defined by the log format and the types of logs that you currently have it, and make that correction. And that's usually the first step I will do with our partners. From there, if you remember, I also had here excluding logs. The reason I will actually touch on this subject is because one of our goals as customer success engineers and Logz.io as a whole is that we want to help you getting the most from the current logs that you have. And sometimes you will be shipping logs to us that may not be as relevant. Maybe you don't need them. So you're buying storage from us, and now you're storing your logs. And if we are storing logs that are not important to you, then the value of our solution may diminish. You actually want to see what's important to you, and you know what's important. So one of the things that we may do with some of our partners is try to understand how we can reduce some of the logs that they're shipping. So one, we can remove the noise, and also just get the logs that are truly important to them. So how can we help you with that? One of the options is click on the little gear right here, go into settings. If you go into usage and billing, we have this feature called volume analysis. It's currently in beta. However, what it will do for you is that we can actually do an analysis of the logs that you're shipping to us and kind of match patterns and actually show you like a breakdown of the log lines you're shipping to us. The reason this is important is because once you identify what are the log lines, the ones that actually are relevant to you, that have great information that you actually want to know, you can then make a decision if you still want to keep shipping it to us or if you like to exclude it. So when, as I said, I would be working with FileBeat, and some of my explanations here is that FileBeat has something called a prospector. So basically the prospector is the configuration values for the shipper itself, and one of them is actually exclude lines. And the way you do it, you actually add this prospector right here, exclude lines, and from there you can just write a regex line that actually identifies this kind of log line that you're shipping it to us, and you can exclude from shipping completely. So once again, when doing some work with some of our partners is, let's look at your shipper, let's trying to understand if you're properly shipping type. If you notice, one of the things under the usage billing, not only type is configured here, but the volume analysis, you actually can also run based on the log type. So defining your type first also helps you when trying to use the solution. So first, let's fix the type if you haven't done that yet. And from there, just run the volume analysis. Try to see what kind of logs you're shipping to us. Are they relevant? If not, most shippers do have a exclusion option. Feel free to reach out to our support team for more details. But FileBeat, pretty simple to find, pretty simple to run. Very good. From there, let's talk a little bit more about data parsing. All right. So how do I parse my data? So we quickly spoke about data parsing as something relevant when using the solution. And the next topic I'm going to go into, especially when it comes to search, I think that will be a lot more clear to why this is important. But there are basically three ways for you to parse your data. One of them is just send it your logs in JSON. It's automatically parsed by Logz.io. In reality, JSON is native to Elasticsearch, so you not only have full control over your logs and how they are actually structured, they will come in pre-parsed, and you will be able to use those fields right away, and we'll go into more details on how that's relevant to you. We also have a list of supported log types. There are some log types, as if you remember, type is a very important field. And if we go back to the academy, we go to the onboarding, and we go into log shipping, we do have a list of pre-configured log types right here. So if you do ship us any of those logs listed right here and type, you properly configured with this one of those names right here under type, your logs will be already pre-parsed for you out of the box. And lastly, we do offer parsing as a service. Feel free to reach out to our support team and we'll parse your logs for you. However, we also do offer parsing directly from our tool. And I am data parsing, there you go. Sorry for that. So if you go once again into the little gear settings, and tools, and you go into data parsing, we do have a parsing wizard, which you can then try to write your own grok pattern. We did go through a basic example on our webinar, titled once again, Logz.io 101, how this works, but there's plenty of resources that we can also give it to you so you can actually write that information. So going back is, feel free to use the wizard or contact our support team, and we'll do that for you. So let's take a look into our logs now and see how the data parsing actually works. If you remember, I mentioned type, and I keep going back to that, as a field that will come through. And as you can see, I actually have the type for this log is Nginx. If you were able to notice, we do have Nginx access logs as a pre-configured log type. And because of that, this log line was already pre-parsed without any extra work. So one of the things I will do when working with our clients, actually go to type, I try to understand what type of logs they have and try to give them some advice from there. From there, what's the advantage of parsing your data? So let's look at this log line in particular, which is the message field. Every log that you send it to us will come into the message field. And what the parsing will do is actually break down this message into its own fields so you can easily search for the data. So from here, I can see this is a 200 error. I see this is a GET request, and I can see the browser the person is using. So for example, I see that I have a response. So every time a response error comes through, it will go inside of this field. And same thing with a verb. What's the verb that actually was used on this call, and so on and so forth. So the reason this is so relevant is because it allows me to easily search for my data. Another relevant thing is when parsing your data, you will notice that next to the field itself, there is a little symbol. For, let's say, message and request, we have a T, which signifies a string, while the sharp right here signifies that this field is numerical. The reason that's important, just to give you as an example, I was recently working with a customer and he was having trouble on actually getting a visualization to see the average because he was sending us a response time. However, since his field was still mapped to a string, we could not tell that it was actually a number, and he actually wanted to do numerical requests on that, basically looking for the average response time to create a visualization. So you actually can have full control over that under tool, and if you go to field mapping, you will be able to find every single log type and also field name that has been created for you. And on the right hand side, you will see how it's mapped. You do then, you feel like to change the mapping for anything, or if something comes in with the wrong mapping for you, feel free to come here and make those changes. There's also other reasons why this field mapping is very important for our customers. I do cover that also. We do cover that also in the academy. So if you were to go to onboarding and go to parsing, we do have a very extensive video talking about field mapping and how to take advantage of that. I will not dive into all the intricate pieces of how to leverage this, but feel free to visit the academy and watch that video. However, I just wanted to share with you is this is a very simple and quick fix. If you're looking at your logs and you realize that is a numerical field, however, is not properly set to do so, you actually can correct that yourself. All right. So actually, let's go into some searches. So we did have 2 webinars. It was actually part 1 and part 2 around Kibana searches in general. So if you're interested in learning more about searches, please do visit our academy and look into those 2 webinars, because you can learn a lot more on how to search the data. However, I'm actually going to be covering some very basics on a search today, mainly around why parse data is important. But you actually can, in a search, do free text, a field level search, and we have some examples right here, and also through filters. I'm actually going to be covering filters today. But once again, if you're interested, visit our academy and look into the webinars that we did offer, and you will see that we had one on Kibana searches expert part 1 and part 2. All right, with that being said, once your data is parsed, you will notice that we have a positive and a negative filter next to basically every single field right here. So let's say I'm actually looking through my logs and I don't want to see the response 200, and I want to make sure that I'm actually only looking at my Nginx logs. What I can do is click on the little plus value right here, which is called a positive filter. That will automatically add this filter on the top. As you can see, the value is Nginx. And then from there, I can just look for the response once again and click on the negative filter, which now removes 200. So I'm actually not getting any 200 errors, but I'm also looking at the last 15 minutes. So I'm actually going to look at the last 12 hours. As you can see now, I'm actually currently seeing some other values. The other advantage of actually parsing the data and have the data coming through the fields itself is because I can click on this toggle to column right here, make changes to the way I want to visualize the data. So let's say I want to see my 500 or whatever responses, and also see where the request is coming from. And then I want to remove this message field. And basically now, as you can see, I'm actually looking at my logs. I can see directly the response errors that I have, and also the request that's coming through. A question I got in the past was, if I actually build something, how can I actually always get back to this? So currently the way to do so is by saving a search. So let's say I want to save this search right here, type Nginx, and I want to see my response errors, but just not 200. And I also want to save with this view right here. What I'll do is click save. I'm actually going to call this one onboarding webinar. Click save. And then from there, as you can see, I'm currently looking at my logs using this filter. And if I ever want to open that again, click open. I can just do a quick search, find it, click on it, and now I have this view. All right, so let's jump into our next topic, which is around Kibana visualizations. How does all of this parsing also ties back into the visualizations themselves? And also, let's say you are searching through your data and you save a specific search, and you also want to build a visualization around that searching particularly. So let's talk about it. From there, we're going to go into some more details on visualization types, using saved searches, and also building dashboards. So Once again, since this topic's about onboarding, I do go over some basic searches with our partners. If there's any specific search capability you're looking for, once again, we do have that webinar. Usually the value I try to convey on during my onboarding is that a lot of times I'm working with people who have never used Kibana in the past, and using your parse data to easily search through those filters right here and actually filtering your data. This is actually the best way to start. From there, I will then start teaching people of how to use the search, but usually that would be around a second class or a second onboarding conversation where we actually can go deep dive into how to search their data specifically. All right, but now I have this onboarding webinar saved, and I want to build a visualization around this. So let's go into it. If I click visualize, all I have to do is click on the little plus right here, and that allows me to build a visualization. Today, I'm actually going to be covering two visualizations. Usually those are the examples I give within my training as well. One of them will be a pie chart. Why do I start with a pie chart? Because honestly, is the simplest visualization you can build. So from there, when you actually choose the type of visualization you want to build, you will be able to then choose your whole index. So it's all of the data that you're sending to Logz.io, or I can come here and just filter a saved search, which then will use this filtered search to build the visualization for me. Since that's exactly what I want to do, I want to use all of the logs that are type Nginx and not 200 errors or response errors. I'm going to choose this visualization. So let's take a quick look into what I'm looking into here. And this actually will also help you understand of how you can manipulate the data that you currently have. I'm currently looking at the last 12 hours. And once again, if you want to change the time frame, click on the time, choose the time that makes the most sense for you. Let's say, well, let's change 24 hours. And now I have this big blue circle. What does that mean? This is a count. A count of what? A count of actually log lines that are coming through within that 24-hour range. So currently on my logs, I have 118 log lines that had a response that was not 200. And that's once again within the 24-hour time frame. From there, let's say I want to then give a breakdown of the responses that I'm getting. So if I split the slices, one of the options I will have under aggregation, it's called terms. Terms allows me to choose a field. And the only fields listed here are parsed fields. So if you actually want to build efficient visualizations, you have to parse your data. Once again, if you haven't parsed your data, please reach out to our support team and we'll give you some direction of next steps. I can easily search for a field. I'm going to choose response. And by clicking on the play, I now can see a breakdown of the response errors I'm getting. Currently, I'm getting 404 errors and 500. If you remember, I did use a link, a saved search, and here's the link for it. If I want to break this link, I can double click on that. And now I can see the breakdown, exactly how the saved search works. And let's say I want to trash this filter because I want to add 200 errors now to this visualization. And boom, 200 is back. So I might have gone a little bit too quick on that. So let me just show you how I will build this filter once again. I can come here and click on the add filter, which allows me to choose a field. And I can just say is and give it a value. Save it. And now as you can see, I'm actually filtering in all the 200 errors. But let's say I actually wanted to filter that out. What I could do is just click on the magnifying right here with a negative, which is a negative filter. It will switch this filter into is not. And the reason I know that is that if I click on the little pencil, I have a is not now, 200. Another option that I would have by building a visualization first is I can choose the value that I want. Once again, the positive and negative filter is right there. I click on the minus. Once again, is added. Now I have a visualization based on my saved search, and I can easily manipulate that data. So once again, when building visualizations, please keep in mind that having your data parsed will be key to be successful with all of this. So let me save this. Onboarding pie chart. All right. Now let's deep dive into another type of visualization. So this, as you can see, is very simple. I have values, it's just so I actually can see the volume itself. A very common request that I have, so let's create a new visualization, is that sometimes people actually want to see spikes. So not only they want to see potentially what's like the volume of something that's coming through, they want to understand how that's compared to the logs as a whole. So if there is a spike of 404 errors, they actually want to see that. So how can we build a visualization based on that? Once again, I'm gonna choose the onboarding webinar saved search, and to kind of go over the basics of what we see here. If you notice, there's a little dot. Once again, I have the 118 count. That means based on this onboarding webinar saved search that we have on the last 24 hours, here are the logs that are coming through, and that's the total volume. From there, the first thing I'm going to do when building a visualization that is a line chart, and that's what I chose, I can actually choose the x-axis. So as you can see, we actually have the y-axis, and it's currently the count, the number of logs that are coming through. But I want to then choose something on my x-axis, and what I'm going to choose is something called date histogram. And by quickly clicking on play right here, I can not only see a breakdown of the timestamp of per 30 minutes. So every time I see a little dot here, that means in a 30-minute time frame of my 24 hours, so it's a breakdown of this time, I can see exactly how many logs of a specific, like just specifically all the logs based on this filter. But if you remember, I also was looking at my response errors. So what I can do is add a sub bucket, and I'm going to split the series. And the aggregation, I'm going to choose, once again, terms. And because of the parsing that I applied, I can choose response, and I would click play. Now, as you can see, my green is the 404, my blue is the 500 errors, and I can see that the spike right here, for example, or the spike right here is the 404 errors, and my 500 errors is basically a flat line that came through a specific time frame. So by building visualizations with the date histogram on the bottom, the x-axis, allows you to then keep an eye on specific values that you potentially want to understand how they are correlating with the data. If there is a spike of any sort, of any specific value that you're looking for, what you can do is create a visualization so you can keep an eye on that. And also use our alert system that if that threshold reaches a certain point, you would then be able to know, create a visualization, see it, and then have an alert to let you know that that happened. All right, so let's save this visualization. This is, once again, another visualization that I will build with our partners, and line chart. And usually those are the two examples I go through. The reason I go through those two is to kind of give them an idea of what can be built. We have had webinars on building visualizations. We deep dive into some very specific, intricate parts of building visualizations as a whole. But our Logz.io Academy, if you go into the onboarding, we do have a variety of videos that you can watch based on different visualizations themselves. So feel free to watch them and see what else you want to learn about it, or reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to give you some direction. And lastly, what I will show based on visualizations is building a dashboard. Basically, what the dashboard allows us to do is, as you can see, I quickly just started one. And by clicking on add right there, it allows me to then choose visualizations that I build and put everything under a panel. And by clicking save, it allows me to then save this dashboard. I will not go into many details on dashboard today. We did cover that on previous webinars, but what I want to show you here, and when I do build those visualizations, I do build a quick dashboard, is because, as you can see now, I have two graphs. I can potentially, if I want to do a correlation of data, I want to actually analyze my data and actually see potentially spikes and also see how other fields or other results are actually being impacted by this. I will build a dashboard. And the beauty of the dashboard is, you can see I'm currently looking at the last 24 hours. By building things with a timestamp, and the reason I bring that up is because you will be able to drill down directly on the graph. You will update my time frame right here. It updates also my dashboard. As you can see, the time frame that I chose had no 500 errors, and now they are gone. I'm only seeing the 404 errors. So let's say you want to compare this to the requests. Why am I getting 404? Where are the top requests that are being impacted by this? Let me quickly build a visualization that ties into that. So I would go build, let's say, a data table. I'm going to go very quickly over this, but I could split the rows, choose aggregation, terms, and I do a request. Click play, and now I'm going to save it. Table. And now, if you remember, I had my dashboard. I will come here, click edit, and I'm going to add now this table I just created. Click save again. And as you can see, I can see the requests that are coming through. So that's why you would build a dashboard. You start as simple. Play a little bit with the data, build a pie chart, see how the data looks, build a simple visualization with a timestamp, see how the data looks. Well, what else do you want to compare? And from there, start slowly building your dashboard, and you actually can get great results. And I can see my 404 on this specific request is actually the highest of them. If this number concerning to me, if it is in your case, what you want to do is look into that and why it's happening, and so on and so forth. All right, guys. So the last thing I will cover from here is some basic around on how to then, let's put an alert system to let me know when this potentially happens. If we go back to Discover, as you can see, I'm still using my saved search. And let's say I want to focus on 404. So what I'm going to do here is edit this response filter. And I'm going to say I want it to be only 404 responses. From there, we made it very simple for you to create an alert. First thing you want to do is do the query first, see exactly the results that you want. And then from there, there's a create alert button right there. By clicking on that, you will see that the query follows me. Now I'm currently looking in the Nginx logs once again, and the response is 404. I'll give it a name. I can give it a description if I want. I'm actually gonna, the type is, it is an alert. That's exactly what I want. And I will say, let's say if I get more than 10 events within a 30-minute time frame, I actually want to know about it. So if I get a potential spike, and I would consider that a spike, I want to know that this is happening. From there, I can choose a recipient. I can choose myself by typing an email. Or if I do have added an endpoint, will allow me to then send a message directly to Slack, or as you can see, other options that you may have internally. We also offer the option to customize that, so you can create a custom and send a alert information anywhere you want. From here, I would choose an output. By default, the output is JSON, but I also can create a table. And what I can do is as you can see, once again, type shows up right there. And let's say I know it's 400, but I'm gonna choose the response just so I can see the value. And I'm gonna add another option, which is the request. And now, as you can see, once this was, let's say this was to trigger, I got more than 10 responses or a count that actually matched this query within a 30-minute time frame. I would actually get this table right here on my email or a Slack message. All right, guys. So once again, when onboarding a customer, the focus that I will have is understanding their team, so I can potentially suggest how they can actually leverage our sub-accounts. Make sure that when shipping logs, you're properly defining type so it can easily be parsed and also filtered. And hopefully there were enough examples where type is a major field within Logz.io and how that can actually be leveraged. Then from there, let's make sure that you are sending us the logs that are relevant to you. Talk about why parsing is important. Let's parse your data. Let's talk about searching, visualizations, how you can leverage them, and let's start leveraging alerts. So hopefully this gave you some insight of how you can improve using the solution as a whole. If you saw some holes in the way you are currently using it and you would like some help, please feel free to reach out to us. And once again, we do have the Academy. We did build this onboarding. It's a very systematic approach where if you start with the basics and you follow those classes, we go into a lot of details on how we believe the building blocks of you learning Logz.io will come into play. Okay, so from there, I will open for questions. We'll look into it. However, I do have one more poll that I would like to send it to you guys, and we'll love your feedback. Let me launch it and I'll talk about it. So, would you take advantage of a personalized onboarding if it was available? As you can see, this webinar was focused on onboarding, and the reason we built the Academy was to help our customers who prefer self-onboarding. But the reason this question is so important to us is because we do want to make sure you get the most from Logz.io. So as my role here as a customer success engineer is to focus on your success with the tool. So hopefully this gave you some tips on how to improve it. And I'm gonna give you guys about 10 more seconds, 5 more seconds actually, and I'm gonna close it, and then I'll close into why this poll is so important to us. All right, let's close it. Get a good amount of answers, and let me share it. I feel it's almost half and half here, but the people that said yes, that would be great. We do offer personalized onboarding with your subscription, so it's actually part of your service. And the reason I bring that up is because every customer that we have can take advantage of this onboarding with the descriptions I gave you, with the customer success engineer who knows our product really well and has worked with other customers like you. And what we try to do is give you best practices, how you can improve your usage of the tool. So if you're interested in taking advantage of the onboarding, even if you have been onboarded already, feel free to send us a message, send us a ticket to help@logz.io, and we'll be happy to schedule a call with you and review the data with you. However, if you prefer to learn things on your own pace, hopefully the Academy will help you, and also the other resources that we offer. So lastly, once again, use the Academy. If you do have any feedback about it, send us an email, and we'll take it from there. All right, let's open for some Q&A. And I have someone fielding that information for me. So give me a minute, let me look into it and we'll take a look. All right. All right, good question here is, what is saved account utilization metrics and save log size under the account management? So I did go over when creating an account or creating sub-accounts on two options, is the enable main account users to access this account and searchable from the main account. However, I did not talk about those two other options right there. We also have built a account utilization metrics feature. And by the way, I will, for more details, feel free to go into the Academy. And under ebooks and guides, we do have an article that talks exactly about this feature. But basically, what we are trying to do with this account utilization metrics is to give you full visibility into how you're using the data. What I mean by that is you have a daily volume, and we want to show you how your logs are being ingested and when you're potentially getting close to log ingestion or to the limits of your account and so on and so forth. And also the save log size, if we go back to Kibana, what we do is add a field called log size, which will have a value. And you're actually able then to, you will be able to build visualizations and understand exactly volumes that are coming through. And also, if you remember, we talked about the volume analysis. It shows you patterns of logs. But let's say you also want to know what are the logs types or whatever that are actually using the most GBs on your account, so the gigabytes. So you actually can build visualizations around those two fields as well. But once again, visit the Academy. We have an article about it if you're interested in learning more about it. Another one was, do you have examples of more complex visualizations? We could, however, we do have two webinars. If I go back into the webinars, we do have create the perfect monitoring dashboard. And by the way, this one here, we do go into the details on how to build the visualization for utilization metrics in case you want to do it on your own. And also recently, our last webinar was around advanced Kibana dashboards and visualizations and some cool tips around it. So feel free to watch those. They will be very helpful in case you want to learn more about visualizations. All right, next question. Let me take a look. So the question is, have you been able to configure FileBeat to ship different inputs to different destinations without having to create a separate instance of FileBeat? Yes, I will go into a quick example on how that's done. So basically, once you have an instance of FileBeat installed, you will have your YAML file. As you can see right here, there's an input. Once the FileBeat input is created, you will have this right here with the prospectors and so on and so forth. So one of the things you will notice as well before I go into more details is that we do have a configuration wizard. So if you are using FileBeat, feel free to click on it. You will be able to create the YAML file, and the YAML file will then come with this configuration. So if you have more than one input, what you do is you just copy this top layer right here, and you copy it and you paste it. And you have basically, as you can see, an imitation. And from there, you can choose different tokens. So they will ship data to different accounts. You will be able to then differentiate the log types. But not only, if you remember, you also want to differentiate your log types. So the path of a log may be on the same machine as the path of another log. So what you can do is differentiate log types or ship to different sub-accounts and so on and so forth. So basically just copy this right here, paste it on the bottom, configure the way you want it, use the same YAML configuration file to do so. All right. The question is it possible to send multiple types of network device logs to Logz.io via a single dedicated folder and define different types for each type of network device? Yes, the basic answer is aggregate your network logs to a single point and forward it to Logz.io via an agent like syslog. So that is a more complex situation. We do lightly cover that in the Academy as well. However, so we don't have any specific documentation that I could share with you guys on this topic, but feel free to reach out to our support team in case you have more questions and need more details on how to accomplish this, but we could, or your customer success engineer should be able to hopefully give you some more direction as well. All right, the next one is there a cost associated with having support create parsers, or is that bundled with support? I thought I made that clear, but if I didn't, the answer is no. There is no extra cost. Support comes with your account, and we do offer our parsing as a service. All you have to do is click on those little chat bubble, start a conversation with our team, just say, hey guys, I need some help parsing my data, and we'll help you with it. That is part of the service. That is part of Logz.io as a service on the ALK space. So please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Let me see here. All right, I think the question was, you mentioned in the beginning about the type that is very important to define a correct log type for effective data parsing. I see that there are two places that the type is mentioned in filebeat.yaml file. Could you please explain a bit about this? So I did go over the second time I explained it, but to go once again, the reason you see type twice is because the path is different. They are different log types. So the type can be defined when configuring filebeat. You're saying that this path is this log type, and I want to ship it to this sub account. This log path right here is this log type, and I want to ship it to this sub account. So the reason you have type twice is because they are different paths and different logs themselves. All right, guys, that's what we got for questions. I hope this webinar was helpful to you all. Once again, please feel free to reach out to our support team with any further questions, and we look forward to hearing from you. All right, thank you all.